Well, there's been some news about the Patterson-Gimlin film being fake, and I'm going to keep my mind open on the subject until I actually see that documentary. Still, I want to believe. I also want to believe that there is a perfect Bigfoot movie out there, and sometimes that can be harder to find than the Bigfoot itself. Here are 4 Bigfoot films that I recently saw, so let's get squatchy. The Siege of Ape Canyon is a documentary. It's new on demand from Small Town Monsters and directed by Eli Watson. In 1942, a group of gold prospectors in the state of Washington claimed they were attacked by a group of large bipedal apes that they called Mountain Devil after their party shot and killed one of the beasts. Now, over 100 years later, Mark Myersell claims to have found the remnants of the cabin where this standoff between man and beast occurred. The Siege of Ape Canyon comes in hot with a black and white reenactment of the events described by Fred Beck, one of the surviving prospectors who allegedly was attacked all night by a group of angry ape men after killing one of them. The scene is shot surprisingly well and even has a few Raimi-like extreme angles, such as a camera attached to the end of a gun barrel, to make the scene look all the more vivid. While the Mountain Devils, as the prospectors called them, are cloaked in shadows, the scene really amps up the energy and promises that this documentary is going to be a good one. Unfortunately, because director Eli Watson starts out with this good stuff, the film ends up being top-heavy as it becomes something completely different after the engaging first reenactment. The film shifts to a Bigfoot enthusiast and all-around character, Mark Myersell. While Myersell seems like a fun guy to talk to, he's definitely an eccentric who lives a life outside of what most would call normal. Myersell prefers to venture into the rugged terrain all on his own, which is ill-advised by everyone he knows, even his wife, but he does so just the same as his passion to uncover the mysteries of Ape Canyon take precedence over his own well-being. The film delves deep into who Myersell is in the middle portion, which is interesting, but again overshadowed by the action-packed beginning reenactment. The third part of the doc focuses on an excursion into Ape Canyon where Myersell leads a group of explorers, including the Small Town Monsters team, and descendants of Fred Beck himself, to find the spot where the cabin is located. The trip proves to be more dangerous than planned. While the third act of these documentaries usually consist of a night investigation with calls, whoops, and wood knocks, this one is a more casual venture into the uncharted landscape during the day. Not the most thrilling way to end things, but points can be given for making it different than most Bigfoot documentaries out there. I'm going to give The Siege of Ape Canyon 2 feet and 4 toes. The Siege of Ape Canyon hits the ground running, but this exciting opening really isn't indicative of the tender film that unfolds afterwards. This tonal shift leads to some thoughtful and sincere moments of emotional heft by the end, making this one of the more personable and endearing docs in the Small Town Monsters series. CLAWED, Legend of Sasquatch, aka The Unknown, was released in 2005. It's streaming on Tubi from First Look Home Entertainment. It's directed by Karl Kozak and written by Karl Kozak and Don J. Reardon. A spiky-haired jock, a floppy-haired nerd, and 2 chicks venture into the woods to investigate endangered species for a school project about grizzly bears in a nearby woods, and runs into an ancient creature of myth. That pretty much sums up CLAWED, Legend of Sasquatch, another middle-of-the-road installment in a long line of humdrum Bigfoot films. CLAWED starts out with a bit of promise after a few stoic words from a Native American narrator who lets us know how the land has been affected by the white man's intrusion. Then some group of hunters are cacked during the opening credits by a hairy beast. Apart from some pretty gory scenes of Bigfoot tearing out the throats of the hunters, this is some mid-level fare. Director Karl Kozak tries to be creative with some black and white Bigfoot vision sequences, but it isn't scary or exciting. There's no atmosphere or suspense to be seen or felt in this one, and while the Bigfoot looks decent, the way he's filmed running through the forest looks like he just ran off the track and field event from the Olympics. It just doesn't help hiding that this is just a man in a suit. Had they given the beast more of a hunched over walk, it would have been much more convincing, but this Bigfoot runs like he has a broom up his ass. The acting is okay, but nothing to scream about. Jack Conley has made a career of playing hard-nosed cops in such films as Traffic, LA Confidential, Payback, and The Cell. Here he plays, what else? a hard-nosed sheriff. Miles O'Keefe from Waxwork, Tarzan the Ape Man, and the Ator Swords and Sorcery movies is the soul hunter who survived the first attack. Shrewd eyes will also spot the Funhouse's Cooper Huckabee and Valley Girl's Lee Purcell in smaller roles. Once again, the film is set to Jaws as the tourism season is endangered with the attacks, and there's a mayor who does everything he can to keep the deaths under wraps. There are plenty of stereotypical hick hunters wanting to take matters into their own hands, and of course the noble Native American who sheds a single tear when no one listens to him about the gentle giant he refers to as Takahe. There's not a lot of characterization here, just generic roles to fill. The film gets a foot or two for the Sasquatch costume, which looks a bit buff and superhero-ish, but it is nicely done. The mask looks much better than average as well, with even a nice range of articulation. Props for this one for using a real bear in key scenes too. The one thing I liked about this one is that they categorized the Sasquatch as a noble savage rather than a rampaging monster, though he does his fair share of rampaging, but only on the people who deserve it. I'm going to give CLAWED Legend of the Sasquatch 2 foots and 3 toes. The film does manage to retell a variant of the Siege of the Ape Canyon tale, which ties it in with this video pretty well. The genre-filled supporting cast and the quality of the Bigfoot suit gives CLAWED Legend of the Sasquatch a foot up on most Bigfooters, but not by much. SMASHQUATCH is streaming on Tubi from Newark Studios and full-on Ryker Productions. It's directed and written by John Ragsdale. SMASHQUATCH follows 3 gals out for a weekend getaway in an area not only known for its Bigfoot sightings, but also seems to be the stomping ground for a serial killer who wears an ape mask and uses a barbed wire bat as a killing implement. Who'd have thunk it? But these 3 gals end up running into this smasher and maybe, just maybe, even Bigfoot. Saying SMASHQUATCH is a low-budgeter is an understatement. It's the winner of a no-budget horror film contest that was conceived in 3 days and filmed in 5 for under $100,000. And it looks the part, with non-actors, a meandering script, and low production values. Now, this one looks like it was made by a bunch of buddies that share a love for the horror genre. SMASHQUATCH seems like most of the actors were promised free booze, and the 3 main gals seem to take full advantage of that, as they're rarely seen without some form of alcohol in one hand and a bong or a doobie in another. It's a wonder anything was made at all under these circumstances. But a movie was made, and there is some humor that hits its mark, like when a random dude in the woods is playing guitar and then is murdered by the smasher, reminiscent of the famous Animal House scene. And when you can hear the girls interacting, as the sound is not all that great, some of their banter is witty and fun, kind of like the way friends rip on one another while sitting at a bar. Though Sasquatch is talked about a lot, it really doesn't factor into the plot, as it's more about people dressing up like Sasquatch to get away with a crime rather than actual cryptozoology. The gore is okay, with the smasher running around with a Negan-style baseball bat and a monkey mask spattering CG blood onto the lens, but there's very little squatchy stuff to be found, other than someone using the mythology as a cover for a murder spree. I'm going to be pretty nice and give SMASHQUATCH 1 feet and 3 toes. As I love the indie spirit this film has, hell, give this group a budget and some time and maybe they could make a half-decent film. As is, DIY flick fanatics and maybe the filmmaker's buddies and family are going to be the target audience for this one. Finally, we have The Dark Divide. It's streaming on Tubi, and it's directed by Tom Putnam and written by Tom Putnam and Robert M. Pyle. In this based on a true story set in 1995 California, David Cross plays Dr. Robert Pyle, a renowned butterfly expert who is in search of purpose after he loses his wife Thea, played by Deborah Messing, to cancer. Due to her illness, Robert postponed his trip to the American backcountry to prove his theories that an elusive species of butterfly still exists in the area. But unbeknownst to Robert, Thea's parting gift is a trip to that very wilderness to perform this exploration and not wallow in self-pity after she is gone. Robert does indeed gear up as best a college professor can and sets out to find his butterfly, but instead runs into the elusive cryptid known as Bigfoot. It's not the destination, it's the journey. I believe that's the old adage from Robert Waldo Emerson. This is a story about a man looking for some kind of sense in the world after the love of his life dies. He sets out to find one thing and ends up finding something altogether quite different in The Dark Divide. This movie proves to be more of a meditative journey of self-discovery than your typical Bigfoot horror piece. There are some moments that are quite thrilling, as Pyle is in over his head trouncing through the woods with only a butterfly net and some rudimentary understanding of survival in the wild. The film does end with a downright chilling beat involving our favorite hairy cryptid, but for the most part, this is a story about a man out of his element and too proud to say so, and the man almost paying for that mistake with his life. The Dark Divide focuses the bulk of its story establishing that Robert is pretty much full of shit. He's a pompous man, overly educated, and looking down on the rest of the populace, which seems to be a malady much of academia is stricken with. Robert is book smart, but a field idiot, a fact that even his peers in the faculty of the school he teaches can sense. Once out in the field, Robert runs into quite a few others, all of which recognize that he's a babe in the woods, though Robert's pride won't allow him to admit it. So because of his inflated ego, he presses on, only to find out the hard way that the woods are very unkind, especially to the unprepared. Anyone familiar with David Cross, either through his sketch comedy on Mr. Show, his stand-up, or his iconic role as never-nude Tobias Funke in the classic Arrested Development series, can see that this comedically pompous character is something he could play with his eyes closed. When he's not ranting about politics on social media, Cross can be quite hilarious. As Robert Pyle, Cross does get into some comedic antics on his journey as he trips through the thick forests, but what surprised me is the way Cross handles the more serious moments involving Robert's time with his dying wife and the metamorphosis he undergoes as he is served a big slice of a humble pie by Mother Nature. Given his pomposity while interacting with the construction workers he sees in the forest, and pretty much anyone else he interacts with in this movie, it should feel cathartic to see Robert fail so badly at wildernessing. But because Cross plays it so you can see the lost little man under all of those $4 words, my heart broke as he nears the revelation that there are things in this world he cannot overcome with his various degrees. But what about Bigfoot? Well, the beast is present in one way or another pretty much through the entire film. Robert finds giant footprints and even bigger piles of scat in his journey, hears wood knocks, and might have a glimpse or two of the big guy now and then. But this isn't your typical Bigfoot movie. The hairy beast is more of a metaphor for the truth of Robert's current situation, elusive and just out of sight so as not to be completely understood. I'm going to give The Dark Divide 4 feats. This isn't really a horror movie, but it does have a few tense scenes, and an ever-looming threat of the Bigfoot is there, even though the protagonist is oblivious to it for most of the movie. The Dark Divide ended up hitting me pretty hard. It's a touching emotional journey, highlighting both Cross's comedic skills, but his dramatic talents as well. It's low on Bigfoot, but still a wonderful and thrilling little story. The YETI is available on demand and coming soon to Blu-ray and digital download from Wellgo USA. It's directed and written by Gene Gallerano and William Pisciotta. It's 1947, and after one expedition to the Alaskan wilderness ended with the entire team of explorers going missing, another team of experts is put together to rescue the missing team, which includes 2 soldiers, played by Link Hand and Jim Cummings, an explosives expert, played by director-writer Gene Gallerano, son of the billionaire Mariel Sunday Jr., played by Eric Nelson, and gifted cartographer Ellie Bannister, played by Brittany Allen. Ellie's estranged father, Hollis Bannister, played by William Sadler, was on the earlier excursion, giving Ellie a personal investment in this trip, though she hasn't seen him for years. Once in the Alaskan wilderness, the team gets lost, but eventually is able to track down the cabin where the missing team was last seen, and a not-so-mythical creature known as the YETI. The YETI is a classically made practical effects-laden, good old-fashioned creature feature, and they just don't make movies like this anymore. Well, they do, but usually films of this sort have a very low budget, so they're bound to have the seams of production and lack of funds show through here and there. While most likely the YETI was made on a limited budget as well, filmmakers Gene Gallerano and William Pisciotta make the best of it, making the film look as if it would have been made in the 50s and 60s, the golden age of the creature feature. So there is this feeling that certain sets are used and reused, such as the wilderness spot where the explorers stop and rest and argue, seemingly to be the same spot where the climax takes place, and any other scene that takes place out in the woods for that matter. It's little things like that that annoy nitpickers, but only endears me to the film for being creative on a limited budget. One of the other things that occurs in creature features is that you always had to wait to see the monster, and modern audiences, sadly, don't have that patience. While there were snippets here and there, a clawed paw slashing an innocent, a shadow or a quick glimpse of the creature, it wasn't until the last act that we usually see the monster. It's a staple for creature features, mainly because the monster wasn't really that scary once the curtain was pulled back. Well, though they do hold back a good view of the monster until late in the game, the good news is that the YETI looks damn intimidating once it is revealed, towering over the explorers, covered in realistic fur, and sporting an articulated face and not just a monkey mask. A lot of work was put into this practical effect, and it looks the part. It seems, in certain scenes, the monster is worked as some kind of puppet with the mouth and large arms being moved by artists off screen. It reminded me a bit of the way Ludo from Labyrinth moved in certain scenes. I usually don't look at other reviews, especially those on IMDb, as those quote-unquote reviews seem to be made by the worst of the remedial class. But I made the mistake of peeking and seeing a lot of folks ripping all over the Yeti for all of these factors I listed above. Those who are ripping on this film for being low budget simply haven't seen enough horror movies and definitely haven't seen the sheer amount of horrible Bigfoot movies available out there. The Yeti may not have the largest budget, but the filmmakers have been able to recreate that awesome Saturday afternoon movie creature feature vibe perfectly, and I love it. What adds to the quality of the Yeti is a cast to die for. First, you have two elder actors, Corbin Burnson and William Sadler, as explorers with conflicting views on how to treat the monster they are hunting. These two actors are definitely not phoning it in, with Burnson offering a fierce performance as Mariel Sunday Sr., and Sadler plays some heartwarming but gruff beats as well as Ellie's father. But that's not all the Yeti has in star power. Filmmaker Jim Cummings is charismatic, yet unique as the laid-back soldier who fancies the lead, Ellie. He's not playing your typical hero type, but still stands out in the cast. Finally, Brittany Allen, who was last seen as Dexter's mother in Dexter Original Sin, embodies classic Hollywood beauty. She looks like a cross between Grace Kelly and Toni Collette here, showing tragic beauty, but still comes off as tougher than most in her group of explorers. I'm going to give the Yeti 4 feet and 3 toes. Sure, I'd have liked to have seen more Yeti too, but what I did see, I liked a whole lot. The Yeti offers strong performances from its cast, a fun story, and enough bits and pieces of Yeti to entertain. Though it isn't big budget, it shoots for the stars and turns out to be a wonderful ode to creature features of old. If you grew up with those old monster movies, the Yeti is going to be a whole lot of fun. Well, there are 5 Bigfoot horror movies, of a sort. Let me know if you've seen them, what you thought of them, if you're gonna see them, or even let me know what movies you'd like me to cover in this video series in the future down in the comments. Please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside